Hello, welcome back to Buckle Up. My name's Rob Wilson and this is the SAAB 9.3 Convertible. So let's start at the front then, and well, a couple of interesting SAAB things. Number one is the distinctive grille that SAABs have, which is this sort of centre bit, and then it's almost like they've tried to emulate the BMW grille slightly at the sides. I'll probably get a bit of hate for saying that, won't I? Oh well. Also, things to note, because this is a sensible Swedish SAAB, it has headlight washers, but also 3 windscreen washer jets, just to make sure it covers the entire windscreen, so there's no chance of any streaks on a long, cold Swedish night while you're driving in the countryside. This colour's a bit of an interesting one. Not sure what it's called. I'm going to go with a goldy, silvery thing. If you do know what it's called, let me know down in the comments below. And while you're there, remember to like and subscribe to see more videos like this. The badge is a typical SAAB badge with the red griffin thing with the crown on its head and the tongue there, like that. And then SAAB, which stands for, and I want to make sure I get it absolutely right, so I've got it on my phone. I don't want to embarrass myself for any reason. It stands for Svenska Aeroplanaktiebolaget, which means Swedish Aeroplane Corporation. So it's basically like if British Airways made cars. Anyway, shall we go and look at the side? So at the side then, and we'll start with these rather magnificent SAAB 17-inch wheels. You can see clearly the reference to the 3-spoke design that SAAB have had in their collection for many years and continue to make them up until they stopped selling cars in 2011. So that's an interesting SAAB-y thing. There isn't really too much going on down the sides, apart from when you get to the back where you find not 1, but 2 aerials. I have no idea why. But what I do know is it's a convertible. So I'm going to hop in and flick the switch and see what happens, as you have to do on YouTube.
Close the door.
You might want the door closed. Now that doesn't seem right. Well, what's going on? No! What the hell is happening? Well, there you go. That's how the roof goes down in the SAAB. Badly.
Kept holding the button in the same direction.
Yeah, I just pressed it. It just was like windows up, windows down, windows down, windows up.
Roof down.
Roof! That's so overly complicated. What the hell was that? I'm not going to touch anything ever again. Let's go and have a look at the back.
It looks quite cool like that.
I'm sure it does, but I didn't press anything to make it do that. Right, okay then, let's see if the boot works a bit better than the roof. There is a button here, and it doesn't do anything. So, if you press the key, eventually it opens itself up quite far again. And you can see it's actually quite a reasonable amount of space in here. It goes really far back, and it does have a little warning sticker here to say that if the roof is going to stay up, you can move this part up. So you could put actual proper suitcases in there if you wanted to. The other thing is, you get this rather wonderful SAAB, welcome to SAAB folder, which I presume you would have got when you purchased the car 15 years ago. And it's got the manual inside it, which shows you lots of aspirational photographs of you driving your Saab in the snow. Because for some reason Saab thought people who buy convertibles live in the Alps. See? But what I have discovered, rather brilliantly, is that colour is not called Goldie Silver. It's called Parchment Silver Metallic. And that sounds way better.
Does it?
No. Anyway, should we go and see what the inside's like? Oh, right. Inside at last. And boy, are there a lot of things to talk about in here. Where to even start? Let's start on the centre console. Saab have always had these weird aircon vents that are just a giant thing that they've had them for years, and I think they even had them in the 9.5 before that went out of production. It's just a thing they did and they've stuck with it. Then further down you've got your radio controls and stuff like that. It's all standard early 2000s stuff going on. Further down you've got all your climate controls, heated seats obviously because it's Swedish. But the thing that I love the most is this cup holder. Ready? It happens really quick, so... Did you see that? Did you see that? How did that happen? Look at the engineering that goes into this when I push it back in. Whoa! And it still works all these years later. That's fantastic. Storage-wise, what have you got? Because you do need some with it being a convertible. You've got a big sort of centre cubby that goes down to about the length of my hand. Oh God, that makes an interesting noise. You've got a little cubby here that slides open, and another fold-down piece of plastic, which sort of makes that a cup holder. Some people would argue it didn't. You've also got a glove box, which is full of rubbish.
Oh my God.
So don't worry about that.
It's really full of rubbish.
Yeah. Another sort of interesting thing is this little screen up on the top here, which seems to point slightly towards the passenger rather than towards the driver, which doesn't really make any sense because that's where any warning lights come up, for example. So to tell me a door's open. Why would the passenger need to know that more than I did? That's Saab. Obviously, one of the main attractions of a Saab is that they're an aeroplane maker. So there's a couple of things that they try and do to make you remember that is, firstly, there's a thing called a night panel, which if I press, turns off everything except the speedo up to about 80, 90 miles an hour. So the revs don't show, the fuel gauge doesn't show, the turbo doesn't show, the oil temperature doesn't show. So basically you've got no idea if there's any problems with your car. All you can see is how quickly you go, and you just press it and everything comes back on. It's a little bit weird. So the other thing is that the fact that this dashboard sort of curved towards you like the cockpit on a fighter jet, because planes. So yeah, the sort of the argument was that everything had to fall easily to hand as it would to a pilot, and I guess it sort of does to an extent, but it's no real different to a lot of cars at the time, to be honest. A lot of them had driver-focused dashboards, thinking BMW, etc. Saab's sensible Swedishness, safety. The key's down here. Not here, where you would normally find it. No push buttons. This is before that time. So to stop the key going directly into my knee and causing me great difficulty, Saab thought, well, why don't we put it down here and then no one can get injured by the key. Smart. The other thing is that this is a auto. You can change gears manually, and there are, I'm not going to call them paddles because that seems too generous. There are two buttons. One goes up the gears, one goes down on the steering wheel. So I'll try that when we go driving. But more importantly than that, can you tell me where the handbrake is? No, you're quite wrong. It's here. It's part of the design. Look. You wouldn't know it was there. It just blends in with everything else. Because SAAB. Anyway, now I'm going to... Oh God, now I'm going to get in the back. Yay. Rightio then. So the first thing to do is to pull this rather meaty lever up. And if you keep holding that up, it moves the seat all the way forwards for you. And then... Oh... Okay, so that's not as bad as I was expecting entry-wise. And then, if I put... Oh God, how far is this going to come back? Okie dokie. Okay. I am pleasantly surprised. My knees are touching the seat. If I sit up straight, my head becomes structural. But... You wouldn't, you'd sort of slouch a bit. That is very impressive. I've never sat in the back of many cars, never mind a convertible of this size, and fit. Not that I fit, but you know what I mean. It's not, it's actually usable. Also back here there's an ashtray. And you've got some pockets on the back of the seats, although I'm not really sure what you could put in there because my shins are in the way. That's really genuinely surprised me. It's not as bad as I was expecting, because that seat is in my position and I can sit behind myself. Well, there you go. Should we go and look under the bonnet and see what's powering the 9.3? So let's move under the bonnet, which opens unusually far. Normally you have to like crouch if you want to work on your car, but somehow SAAB have managed to make this bonnet open more than any other bonnet I've seen. But here we have the beating heart, the 2-litre turbocharged 4-cylinder SAAB unit that they were using for years. But what strikes me is the actual size of it. It looks very big for a 4-cylinder. The turbo's down, tucked away at the back there somewhere. It also seems to have the world's most enormous battery cover. Not quite sure why that is, but what I'll do now is go and take it out for a drive and we can see what it's like. Yeah! SAAB! Right then, out on the road in the 9.3 convertible. So what does it feel like? Well, it's not quick, despite this being the Vector model, which is sort of the second one up in the range, sits just below the Aero. It doesn't feel particularly sporty, despite that being SAAB's intention. Obviously the Aero was the top spec one with 210 horsepower and all that sort of stuff, but this, the Vector, is 175 horsepower, so it's not terrible. I guess it's sort of hampered slightly by this gearbox, which, being an auto from the mid-2000s, isn't as sprightly as, say, a DSG would be in a Volkswagen product, or an S-Tronic, or all those other sort of things that were available at the time. So I'm going to stick it in manual mode now, and I'm going to use the paddles on the steering wheel, which is a bit jerky, but let's go. Right, 3, 2, 1, go. Change gear. Oh, it's a bit slow. Okay, so it does sort of work. Let's put it back into drive and let it sort itself out. So 0 to 60 is around 10 seconds, so it's not going to set your pants on fire, but then again, is that really why you buy one of these cars? I would argue that it isn't. I'd say it was more of a cruiser. Now that the engine's settled down and it's back in drive, you can hear, well, very little. It's very quiet when it's just cruising, and although there is definitely more noise around the cabin than you would experience in a car with a hardtop. It's not significantly louder, in my opinion anyway. It's, I don't know like how thick the lining is, but you can barely hear the differences, but I would say this would be slightly louder than a car with a hardtop. So what are the actual stats like then? Oh, go on, rev. So as I mentioned before, it's got a 175 horsepower, and that means it'll do about 10 seconds to 60. It's also got 195 foot-pounds of torque, but it doesn't actually feel that torquey of an engine, to be absolutely honest. I don't know if that's just because this car weighs quite a lot. I suspect it does, being a Saab with all of its safety stuff, plus the extra strengthening that'll need to go in to make it a convertible. Speaking of convertible, the ride and handling, you can definitely feel the flex in the chassis over bumps, the twisting going on underneath. It's almost endearing. It wouldn't put me off buying one. It's just a characteristic, I guess, of this particular car. The top speed's slightly lower than the hardtop version at 134 miles an hour, but that's actually fairly decent for, you know, comparing it to other cars at the time. So the suspension is quite soft. It's not wallowy, but it does roll about a bit, but that's to be expected, I would say, at this sort of age and kind of car that it is. The handling, we're on a few little twisty bits now, and there's a bit of a dead spot on centre, but I think that's generally the case on cars of this age. The steering does sort of weight up the more you put in, but it's not a sports car. It's not going to be as nice to drive as, you know, a Mercedes or BMW equivalent, you know, especially with the fact that this is front wheel drive and those cars are rear wheel drive. The brakes are okay, reasonably progressive. Stop the car, which is all you can ask for, really. Well, I think that's enough driving of it. What I might do now is pull over and find somewhere to do a bit of a conclusion for you. So that's the Saab 9.3 convertible. Surprisingly un-Vauxhall-y / General Motors-y, and definitely a great alternative to the usual suspects at BMW, Audi, Mercedes. It's not even remotely similar to a Volvo either, despite the Swedish connection. It's its own thing. It's different. It's interesting. You should go and drive one if you know, are into that sort of thing. You want something a bit different. Look no further than one of these. The things you need to look out for, obviously, on all Saabs is rust, and you know, but you can find decent ones for less than £2,000. So why not have a look on wherever and go and buy one, go and sit in one, go and drive one. Don't be put off by the servicing either, because it's, you know, it's not made of Krypton under there. It is generally something from Vauxhall, Opel, General Motors vehicle, so it's not going to be impossible to get serviced, and there are plenty of Saab specialists out there. So if you can put up with those things, why wouldn't you get one? Right, okay then, thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, give it a like. If you've got something to say, comment down below. Subscribe if you're new around here so you can see more interesting, weird videos that we've got coming up for you. You can follow us on social media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Drive Tribe, Reddit, TikTok. We've got a Patreon if you want to give us money. And look, some merchandise. Why not give us that and you get something in return for buying it, which is nice. Bye.